And hello everyone, welcome back to the Custom Track World Cup. I'm Coast. Ooh, great start to the stream. I'm Scoped, and I will be, unfortunately, your only caster for today. And we're gonna go ahead and get right into the match, actually, because our team started a little bit earlier than expected here. The match for today is going to be US West versus England, which we will follow by two casts later on. But for now, let's just focus on US West and England. To quickly speedrun both these lineups, as we are getting into the match rather soon. For England, we have a pretty traditional lineup for them in Season and Snowy and Bally, and hasn't been playing that much since the start of this Custom Track World Cup here, but still an extremely strong player for England, though Season obviously being expected to be the best runner on their lineup still after the performance he put during the previous days. And of course, US West with a different lineup that they're used to without Pepe for once, for example, with Winter, Volumes, Virox, Kairos, and Ford as their bagger. So a lot of Band K members, a lot of players with already some pretty decent synergy going into this match here. So definitely the favorites going into this as one of the U.S. teams that are fated to be in the semifinals at the very least, alongside U.S. North, U.S. South, and obviously Canada, who has been still going on a tear as of late, and who we will be casting later on in the day. But yeah, U.S. West versus England. Obviously, U.S. West are favored here, but England has been putting on some decent number despite what their record might tell you. So honestly, pretty excited to see this match and for England to try and possibly get out of this lower bracket hell and possibly get into that top six to make it to the playoffs. Bowser Jr.'s Fort and Glimmer Express Train alongside a Rogue Abandoned Boardwalk are going to be our picks for this first race here. I will say Glimmer Expression is going to be our pick, same as England picked against US North yesterday. So not too surprised to see it picked once again. And we did see some pretty clean driving from them, and especially from Season, which we will be following at the start of this race here. But yeah, US West having a lot of running power there with multiple players that have played in Division 1 already. So definitely a really strong team to watch out for. It Volumes making his way up there, going to try and pass up Season, and unfortunately, Season immediately sniping himself with that green here. I'm not sure if we have a second POV here. Season is available, but our other POV is Winter, who has already pretty much gone into first place here with a quick Shroomless attempt, the Shroomless cut rather, and already having quite a bit of break here into first place. Snowy behind him, going to try and catch up for now, but it seems that he is going to take the cut alongside Virox in third. 2, 3, 4, all of them taking the cut there. Snowy in a star, Bally following close behind, and it seems to be only England up there. Nana almost hitting himself out. Winter, they're going to try and contend with these two England players. Fib is thrown up. It is going to get avoided by Snowy there, but it seems to be US West having a pretty decent lead and then immediately getting snuffed out by the cuts on Glimmer Express Train. Obviously, it's saving a lot of time, and great Nana on landing there, making Winter lose so much time as we go into the last section of the first lap here. His teammate right behind him with Beyblade is going to be able to protect himself a little bit. We see a lot of USA in the mid spots there as both baggers are already chaining at the set. So for now, England in a pretty decent spot, especially if they can keep it shockless and possibly blueless later on. Quickly check onto our England POV season, see if he's possibly holding something. It doesn't seem to be, an unfortunate timing as he tries to make his way through the mid pack and ends up getting hit out by Virox, I believe. The top two from England still making their way up there. Winter following close behind, trying to possibly catch up a little bit. Double trick? No. Keeping it safe for now, possibly just going to chain for the Shroom here with his teammates behind him, not wanting to risk too much when it comes to just raw driving. And he knows that neither of those top spots have Shrooms available or not holding it, but it seems that Bali actually did manage to pull one before the cut. They did not have Shrooms in reserve after the first one, but managed to snag a second one as we go onto the ramp here. That POW is going to, unfortunately, make Winter lose a lot of time, and it seems that his teammate from US West actually also fell off during the cut, so The shock, thankfully, managing to allow volumes to catch back up a little bit there with that bill, going to try and contend with that top three. Though even with the blue and the shock, they still are within that top two, trying to still stay up there. And Season is holding another blue for them, so it is only they only need to just stay up there as long as possible. Unfortunately, Season eating that Nana and then a back bomb immediately after. Blue is lost, and Winter could possibly pull it here, but a POW on landing could be just as good there if Volumes calls it correctly. It does hit out top two. Will we see them catch up? Green does not connect onto N here. Volume still behind the top two for now. Triple Reds onto N here, possibly to try and pass and prevent that top two four. But Volumes is actually the one that got hit out. That's an immediate top three for England, even with a US West shock. And with Season losing the blue at the end here, Season going to stay in seventh, unfortunately, but it's still a massive race for England at the start there. We expected US West to come out swinging, but great plays from England. A lot of good backs there, backing on landings, backing Season on landing, backing Volumes out at the end. They're allowing N to pass. Overall, just great plays from England at the start. Great play, great frontal presence from them right at the start from Snowy and Bolly there, and managing to convert it into a great win there. That is an immediate plus 20 win just off the shoot. Well, plus 19, but close enough. An immediate plus 19 race from the get-go, even without the shock there. Speaking of, I do want to mention Nathan and Ford here being the baggers for either team. Nathan considered to be one of the strongest CT baggers in this game's history, though has been playing more Mario Kart World as of late, so possibly a bit of rust showing um, for a lot of this. Hopefully not going to last for that much longer, obviously, and Ford still active, still playing, and still considered a really great bagger as well. So it should be a pretty strong bagging battle on both ends so far. We do also want to mention the fact that uh, and Bolly and Hazard are all able to potentially bag for Team England, so they have quite the bagging bench, so to speak. But Nathan obviously being the best option here, but though Nathan is also just able to run just as well as those players here. So just overall a lot of flexibility in England's lineup being shown here as we go into the second race, which will be Bowser Jr.'s Fort US West pick that they picked once again. Obviously, the Shroom Cut at the start, the potential Shroomless right after, chaining into some pretty decent frontal presence. The volumes is rather well known for picking this, and the Band members are more than willing to follow here. Season winning at the start, getting that star right away, which could be a really decent pull there with how impactful Shock is on any cannon track, trying to predict it possibly, and he is simply just choosing to hold it, not wanting to risk the Shroomless cut here. But Winter, after his own Shroomless cut, actually has that Mega in third place here, so essentially in the same spot as Season, but better, and Volumes off of a triple Shrooms or Golden Pull, I assume, is able to make his way up there immediately into first place as his teammate is forced to contend between two England players. Great dodging by Snowy there off of the Nanas and the Reds. A lot of dodging needs to be done, and he managed to weave through all of them, but unfortunately he is going to get forced into that Mega there, I assume. Indeed, he is still going to be able to take that cut, but that is that shot, that's dodge gone for a potential later shock. And Snowy does get hit out by that Mega as well. Great play by Winter overall, and tries to shroom up, but gets immediately redded. Here we go for the shroomless cut, and he does make it. Great play by Winter so far, getting two members of England out. We did see a member of US West coming up. I do believe it was Virox. I do think it was Virox, but I'm not quite sure. Either way, uh, unfortunately, that USS member not able to catch back up quite well as England does make their way back up into 3-4 with end and Season now as we're approaching the end of that lap 2. Pau connects pretty good T-Pow onto Winter there, forcing him to slow down by quite a bit, but not enough to catch up to him quite yet. But with End throwing that red and a potential We're choosing to hold on to that shroom there on the side of Season. Gotta remember, Season hasn't played the game in quite a while before this World Cup, so possibly just choosing to hold that shroom to guarantee that cut that a lot of these more experienced players, or more active players do shroomless. And it pays dividends for him as he does dodge in the cannon as well. That is a textbook English shock there on Bowser Jr.'s fort, getting top two immediately. Winter dodging that back bomb there by Bali as England is now in top three, but Winter is going to try and possibly uh, counteract that, and it should be able to do so quite effectively, dodging that pow as well with that shroom there. But that should be another guaranteed top two on the side of England here. Let's check quickly with right behind him. Volumes is going to get fourth here, but that does seem to be a pretty good race as Bali makes his way up into fifth place. And I do believe I saw England in seventh as well, but that is at the very least top 2-5 in another winning race for England, showing that despite the record of 1-3, there are still a team that is absolutely in contention for a playoff spot regardless. Given the fact that they had quite the rough schedule going into these first few matches, and absolutely showing that they are still able to contend here Season and securing that top two after that cannon dodge, thanks to Nathan pulling that shock in 10th. At the very least, to my knowledge, it wasn't 10th. Either way, uh, glad to see them able to chain those two wins after their unfortunate performances during yesterday's cast, able to get past that 31-point threshold after the second race only, with all of their players crossing the 15-point benchmark. Apologies, I take a quick swig. Solo casting does take a little bit out of anyone. Regardless, England most likely going to take Stropin's Desert. Oh no, that was U.S. West POV. My mistake. Yoshi Lagoon. Pretty expected track pick from Season, an old running track, the kind that he is familiar with and is able to really secure a lead on, and it is going to get picked by the man himself as we go into race 3 here. So I do expect Season and End to be able to make quite the breakaway here at the start of this first mushroom section. Of course, the track's age definitely showing a little bit in that first mushroom section, as it can be quite jank if you're not fully aware of how well to take it. And Bali actually getting the draft here as well. Winter going to be taking that beautifully. Will we see the the last trick? We will. But so will we see it from Bali and Season as well. Top two from England, even if it's not from End, as Bali managed to get a quick draft going. Winter with that the first TC in one of our POVs for the stream, getting immediately backed out by Season there, getting a magnificent double fib there, forcing them out into 6-7 volumes, and Winter forced back. And I do believe 8th as well is a USA member. Indeed, it is Virox in last, which means that for now, the only one up there is Kairos for the time being, as Winter is going to be able to use that golden to try and get back up there as soon as possible. But we do see a lot of England taking the cut as well, so unfortunately not quite able to catch up just yet. Should be top four actually. It is top four for England as we exit lap 1. A massive play by them, just consistently able to back out those US West members in every single race so far. They've just been able to get so many good hits out of them, and now England, on one of the longest tracks in the game, granted, but still a really strong running track, are in quite the good position here as we go across the ramp here. Volumes making his way into 5th place. Blooper, definitely not what you want in this instance. Is going to be thrown as Snowy, most likely going to connect from the looks of it. Never mind, it just took a little while for it to completely disappear. Golden is going to allow Winter to at the very least get back up there, but the England members should have some items to try and hit him out. Season backs out of red, does not connect, gets bumped by one of the baggers, which I do believe was Nathan, unfortunately, for England. And Winter now into 2nd place. That red is going to connect, phases past that Nana there with the lag, unfortunately, and most likely going to eat another red here potential fib red, nice, barely manages to break it on the mushroom itself, but it seems to be still a really good race for England so far, as the last US member should be. Oh, Virox, that back timing is filthy from Snowy there, as the last US member should be up there. Let's quickly switch over to Season to see which one is it, and it is Volumes who ends up failing right as we switch our POVs here. So we are back into top 2 position. Let's quickly switch back to Winter here as we make our way back. I guess a fish attempt quickly from Winter. Might as well try and get any advantage you can. But either way, most likely going to chain that signal shroom, try and find something to support Volumes there. But unfortunately, Snowy ends up hitting out his teammate and immediately making up for it by back bombing Winter here, and going to try and make his way up there. Volumes in third, still the single hero for the US West here, as the sole member of that top 5, as he has been for the past lap or so. Golden up on the side of Winter. They're going to try and just not get hit out as much as possible. Goldening his way all the way up into 5th place, right behind Snowy. Snowy shrooming up, so no hits for him so far. We do see End falling back into 7th place. And actually, Volumes gets hit out at the end, or either that just simply gets bumped by Snowy. But that is another top 3 on the side of England. England just chaining those amazing races, getting into great positions at the start. Nathan getting that shock and simply choosing to hold it for the entire race uh, as England don't really need to risk anything for that top 4. Not that End necessarily had anything to get back up there in the first place. But yeah, for now, it is simply dominance from England, as another top 3-7 is in the cards for them. And top 4 indiv is kept. And so far, we're seeing a completely different England that we've seen throughout these past few matches during this tournament. I don't know if it's End's presence or simply this specific comp, this specific day, but they seem a lot more confident than they were during the past few matches, and it is absolutely an England that could possibly advance into the top 6 here, depending on how this match and their next few matches go. But so far, I'm really glad to see them bounce back from the losses from the previous days, and I will be fully honest. I've talked to Season between both of those matches, between today's stream and yesterday's stream, and he didn't seem that confident in their chances of making it out of the groups. But if they're able to play at such a consistent level for the rest of this group stage, they're absolutely able to potentially clinch their way into a top 6 spot. Stroban's Desert Illusion possibly a way for England to rather a tough race for England to keep that streak going, as US West finally get a track pick going. We will follow Winter quickly, trying to see if he can possibly get any shrooms at the start, taking one of the infamous cuts at the start of this Stroban's Desert Illusion race, and unfortunately it is a TC that befalls upon him. They're going to try and slow it down a little bit. Unfortunately, it's passed to his teammates as he falls off the track. So unfortunately, our main POV for USO is going to be pretty far behind for now. Season going to have to contend with Volumes, with 3 members of US. Actually, I was about to say Virox and Volumes, but it is also Kairos there, as he gets a magnificent hit onto Virox there, forcing him out of that top 3 contention here. As we do see Virox actually shroom back up into top 3, and it is the complete opposite of what we've seen so far. Kairos great back on the tight line there, forcing Season to slow down a little bit alongside our other POV, which I assume Winder should still be in 8th so far, so both our POVs in the back for now. T-Pow could be absolutely massive here on that section. We know how important it is, and Snowy is going to have a Mega to potentially avoid that, but it seems like we're simply a bit afraid to call that POW there. Granted, it is quite the rough timing to get around with. Unfortunately, a bit of lag on stream on our end, but it should be fixed rather shortly. Snowy getting a pretty nice red there onto Winter, forcing him into that bottom 2 spot that he has been that's been having throughout the entire race. But I do want to mention the fact that USA are still top 3 now for US West, the first time since the start of that war that they've been in such a strong position there. But the shroom cut might be the great equalizer there. Winter shrooming up as well, Snowy making his way into third place here. Possibly an England member up there. Not quite sure. It shouldn't be really, as the US West have built up such a strong lead. Yeah, Volumes is the one up there, but that is another shock by Nathan, getting both Snowy and End in that dodge here, making their way up into 2-3. Kyrox behind his teammate into 6th there. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 4, 5, 6, sorry, for US West so far, as the backs tight are avoided there. But not that mana. It is not going to be avoided, as Bali chains that star, makes his way up there alongside his teammates into 5th. Could be another winning race for England there, but Snowy actually falls off the track, as we saw in front of us. So no, it will not be a winning race for US West here. The slowest snipe you've ever seen onto Bali there, but that is bottom 2 for England, as US West clinch out their first winning race of this match as we close out on that GP1. Granted, it is rather unfortunate that England is not able to really complete that GP sweep, but I will say US West playing this track as well as they could have, really getting into the front immediately. There was Virox did get hit out in the end, but some good backs on the side of Kairos, getting Season out of contention early, getting those top spots early on, and allowing Volumes to simply get enough of a lead that a potential blue wouldn't have even mattered. We did see that an England member was holding the blue for the end, trying to get onto the second place, or simply just getting it near the end, unfortunately for them. But yeah, even with that blue, I highly doubt that Volumes would have even been able to get caught up in any way. Even with that double cannon dodge here, rather single cannon dodge and dodge from End, England were not able to catch up to the top 2, 5, 6, closing that gap a little bit, as England are in front by 38 points, still having quite the cushion, uh, past that 31 points cushion that we do mention a lot on cast. That is the most amount of points that you can get in a single race. So the England still do have quite the lead going into the next race, but Fort Francis is going to be the pick here, as it was split between Fort Francis and Delfino Island for their running track of choice. We have seen Fort Francis on cast before. We know how strong it can be when it comes to sheer running power. The blind backs especially are quite deadly on the spiral and on the castle entrance, so we're gonna have to see if US West can capitalize on those advantages here. And triple greens for Winter is exactly what he needs to try and get back up there. Snowy with that TC going to try and pass it up to him. A little bit of lag between green line and blue line is going to be in favor of Winter, actually, as he makes his way up into 4th place. Bolly spamming that mega, making his way up into that top 4 slot. Let's switch over POVs really quickly to Season, as with 2 shrooms, he is going to be able to try and catch up to that US West no, not top 3 actually, End is first. I did not see him slinking his way through the pack, but End in first means that England is actually in a really good slot at this point, as Bolly can just chill in 4th for now, trying to get some early snipes, or simply trying to prevent some potential backs. Winter is holding the bill. As we know, this track is sitting for... Oh, and Season gets backed off. That is an insane back from from USA here, as Season is forced into the bottom spot. But yeah, Bolly and End now the 2 saviors for England, as they need to stay up there. But yeah, as I mentioned, holding Bill there is pretty huge from Winter, as this track is sitting when it comes to bagging. So getting that Bill out of the item rotation for baggers can be pretty big, guaranteeing that you can chain a lot more safely than you could otherwise. Not that US West really need Shock for now. A Season forced into his star there against Virox. Virox is going to be forced into that TC late, and we do see Snow. I believe it was Snowy, unfortunately, falling off on that rail there. A lot of England being forced into the back so far. Winter forced into that bill there. No shock is going to be called, as USA simply do not need it for now, as End is still in first, but they're still in a pretty decent seat so far. Bolly, unfortunately, that POW does manage to mess him up, but it does mess up Volumes as well, as 2-3-4 for US West now, and having a huge lead going into that spiral there. Should be able to keep it if a rogue blue is not thrown, or if there's not a massive driving mistake that fib is not going to connect. It is going to force Winter around, but End is guaranteed to win this. Let's switch over POVs really quickly to season there to see what is going on in the mid pack. 2-3-4 should be secured. Snowy eats that fib. Unfortunately, Virox making his way up there. 2-3-4-6 on the side of US West. That is another winning race for them, chaining 2 winning races and possibly going past that 31 point threshold that we mentioned earlier on. I will say I do not know if Ford was holding that shock for long. Granted, it could have been an option to use it when Winter was in a dodge, no, in that bill if it was pulled early. But I doubt it. I think they would have simply used it earlier on. Securing 2-2-4-6, definitely still a good race for them, getting another winning race out of that, and slowly clawing their way back up into contention here as we are approaching the halfway point of uh, the halfway point of the match here. And as you may see on our table here, there is a -20 on the side of England there. Unfortunately, on Yoshi Lagoon. Volumes did get bumped off by Nathan there, forcing him into the water. So that is a -20. And from a really comfortable seat, from a potential +29 lead, it falls all the way down to 9 points as Volumes manages to snatch that MVP away from England. Uh, but yeah, unfortunately, that is a pretty big blow, both in terms of score and in terms of mental. Getting that sort of penalty in a match that could decide if you make it to playoffs or not is definitely a pretty big mental blow. Hopefully, England are able to bounce back, as Delfino Island is going to be the rogue pick from Winter here. Rogue running track pick as USA chains their third track pick in a row. Let's quickly check up on Winter here. Actually, I'm curious to see how he makes it across that first cut section here. Numerous ways to take it. Some uh, avid viewers of the channel may know, for example, the ground shrooms section, the bounce method, but it seems that Winter is simply choosing to go around not having the ground shrooms that his teammate Virox had, which got him into first place immediately. Good dodge of that green as End is forced into second place. 1-3-4 for US West so far. 1-3-4-5 even. Great spots from them in such a start of the race like Delfino Island. But unfortunately, it seems that Virox either got sniped by End or simply failed, as End is once again in first place when surrounded by US West members. And obviously, as you may have seen, Winter going to be able to hold on to that Mega here. Having a dodge in such a high spot on Delfino Island can be absolutely deadly, as End actually does get hit out by Kyrox there, gets nanted out, but is not enough to lose that first place. End under a lot of pressure now. The lead of the race can absolutely turn around in that section here. Nana is going to be put on the left side of that ramp, not quite connecting for now, as US West are slowly closing in. Snowy making that shroom cut there, Golding into first at the very least. End has one of his teammates alongside him so far. 3-4-5 for US West there as we are approaching the bridge section, the infamous trick section. Nana's going to be thrown up, not connecting any of them, and is forced wide and is going to end up drowning for now. Snowy getting past the baton of 1 versus 3 here, as US West are still in 2-3-4 behind them, but Mega on the side of Winter can absolutely turn that race around if Shock ends up being pulled. And as you may see, both baggers are going forward, and Ford is the one that is being chased. So you should expect the Shock to come around sometime soon, possibly dodging Winter. There it is, exactly as we expected, leaving that ranch room for now, possibly to one of his teammates, or simply not wanting to risk it with the Nan, as Winter is now pretty much guaranteed first place. Snowy in second. Let's switch over POVs really quickly to season there in the mid pack, see how the rest of the race is going. And as you can see, England is in 5, 6, 7 at this point, and quite far behind. They're going to need pretty much a miracle to get past this threshold. Let's go back to Winter really quickly, try and see how that part of the race is gone. But it seems like Winter has managed to actually get himself a shroom into first place. So unless Snowy can manage to get a stray hit, I do think Winter should be able to break any reds coming his way. Winter should get guaranteed first place here. Let's switch back once again to Season in the mid pack. They're shrooming up past the set. Reds are going to be thrown backwards. USA in bottom two for now. And Season, unfortunately, ends up getting star there. So it is going to be at the very least 6-7 for US West. 8th for Season, and overall still another winning race for USA once again, as they just keep chaining those amazing those amazing performances, as they're now finally, granted it could possibly be close, but I do think, depending on what their last member got, I do think it was 1-3-6-7. I do think that US West may now be in the lead for the first time of this match, thanks to that -20 penalty. 1-3-6-7 indeed. Volumes was the one in third, as we are past the halfway point of the war. And no, I was grossly overestimating, well, not grossly, I was overestimating the amount of points that USA would have, as England stays in the lead there by a mere 4 points. Still in the lead, but definitely not by much. At this point, any single race can sway the momentum of the war entirely, and if US West can chain yet another running track pick there, it could be the start of a really big snowball for England that they might not be able to get out of. They had a really good start to the war, and it seems like they're faltering a little bit, unfortunately, as um, and simply got outplayed on the drawbridge there. Those nanas definitely difficult to avoid. I'm not saying otherwise, but losing that top two there was pretty much guaranteed a somewhat losing race there. As granted, Winter did do a really good job keeping up with those two players, even while holding a mega that entire race. And Sandstone Cliffs is thankfully going to allow England a little bit of a break. That bagging track pick they have picked before, that a lot of teams rather, are really familiar with, possibly allowing them to catch their breath, get a winning race after all of that US West dominance, and possibly get back into the match properly. For now, we're simply going to follow Winter at the start of this race, try and see exactly who is going to contest him after the shroom cuts. Snowy, a bit of a better start, but ends up getting hit out because of it, greened out by Bolly immediately after, and also comboed by his teammate, unfortunately, as Winter is going to simply get an item in 8th here. Golden should allow him to catch back up, and it seems like we are simply choosing to hold it. Interesting. Granted, I'm not exactly sure why, but possibly simply to hog it, as we see a lot of England members. No, never mind. We're simply using it here. Okay, I'm admittedly a bit puzzled by that, but it's no worries for now. As Winter tries to make his way back up into the England fray here, as they're now in 2-3 with 2 reds on the side of Snowy, which that mega will help to contest. And in 5th as well, that red is going to possibly force out that mega a bit early. Great play by Winter there to avoid that red. Kairos making his way up into 4th. Green is thrown up, not going to connect. A lot of dodges from Winter so far, as mega is most likely going to be used at that. Oh, never mind. It is simply going to be forced out of Winter there after that rogue red hit, as England now in 2-3-5. Still a pretty decently neutral race for now. But as you may see, both backers have left their slot here, their usual item spots. So one of the backers does have shock. We should be able to expect it by lap 3. That POW is going to connect onto the, I assume, possibly target POW onto 2-3 of England there. But England's 2-3-4 for now, as Kairos did end up getting hit out. So England is still a pretty decent spot with Season in 7th there, trying to catch back up. We're going to have to see if we see that shock early on. Kairos with that TC in 5th, going to try and catch back up to end, but it seems unlikely. It is definitely going to pop, especially with a very nice back green from end there, forcing Winter into that 1v2 up there. Shock is called by US West later on, and we do see Star Dodge behind him. That is Volumes, as Snowy does get TS'd out, and suddenly, with that great shock play there, US West now in top 2, bottom 2, with Kairos making his way up with that star there, and it seems that unfortunately two England members, getting either head out or failing as the U.S. West now in top 2-4 with that shock. That blue is going to be thrown out late season, chaining that star, trying to catch back up to Kairos, and it does seem to be enough, but that is still top 2-5-6 for U.S. West as they chain yet another winning race, folks. At this point, it's a trend, and they finally break England's early lead there as we are closing in at on GP2, leading by 15 points as we go into the last race of GP2. Definitely a lot of it thanks to the shock by Ford, getting both Winter into sets and on a boost panel, dodging Virox, no, not dodging Virox, dodging volumes and allowing Virox to get into first place here. Such an important shock on on a track where shock is important usually, but the US West have managed to play that beautifully, shocking late enough for it not to be too predictable, but still early enough to allow them to catch back up rather safely there, even with Winter being forced to hold the blue for his teammates. But yeah, US West finally making their way in front of England as the favorites they were expected to be at the start of this match. It took a little bit to rev them up, it seems, but for now, they are in the lead as we are coming to a close on GP2. Skyline Avenue would be an absolute disaster for England there, and it is going to be picked, unfortunately. Reverse Caster's Curse. Skyline Avenue, obviously, for once again, for those that are used to watching the Custom Track Cup broadcast, you know how powerful that running track is, and US West are planning to use it to their full advantage here. I would not be surprised if no blue comes along. I would not be surprised to see that top two stay in top two for the entire race there as Kairos tries to make his way immediately past back green, immediately bomb being thrown. That's an amazing bomb by England, actually managing to get out a member of US West immediately as Season and Snowy make their way into 2-3. Kairos being one of the victims, alongside Volumes, I believe, were the two victims of that bomb. And England now in 2-3-5-6, able to immediately catch back up as Winter yet again is holding a mega. It seems to be a habit at this point with the man Snowy. Just letting him pass for now, not wanting to risk it too much. Triple greens in tow, possibly to try and snipe him out. Season going to need to do a lot of work there as Winter pulls out triple reds in third. Someone checked this man's Wii as Season unfortunately is. Oh, never mind. Season pulling triple nanas here, able to block it all and immediately backing out Winter. Great play by Season there, having the game sense to immediately back out after his last item was dropped by that red here. Virox going to eat that blue, and for now, England are going to be able to catch back up for the time being. Snowy behind Winter. With that TC, Winter thankfully having the triple shrooms to get out of that. But yeah, contrary to what, granted, a blue was involved, but England absolutely dismantling the top spots of US West here, and that Nana on the rail is not going to help. We do see End making his way up into that top four in Winter's rearview mirror. But yeah, England suddenly now able to perform quite well. But if you check the baggers that just crossed our screen, Ford most likely has shock and is being chased by Nathan. So there is a chance for US West to catch up here. A mega used behind Winter. Unfortunately, we do not quite know which team used it. I do believe it was End simply chaining that mega, possibly trying to predict an early shock from US West. And there's the shock red that we expected. Two dodges behind, one in a bill, one in a star, and it is Kairos and Volumes making their way up to the front of the pack. But the top two from England still having quite the lead as we go into the last U-turn of the track here. No need to back for now, just playing it safe. England still having quite the advantage here, even with that double dodge on the side of US West. Should be finally another winning race on the side of England there if nothing goes wrong, and it doesn't seem to be. Let's switch over quickly POVs back again towards Winter to see 3, 4, 5, 8 on the side of US West, top 2, 6, 7 for England. And there it is. Finally, we see another winning race from England after so many small chips being thrown by US West, finally able to fire back a little bit after their first two explosive races. Still not enough to catch up to that 15-point lead, but that is definitely a start and definitely the mental note that you want to be on as you are entering this GP3 that could very well decide your playoff chances. For now, that lead being cut in half from 15 to 8, as US West still have a lead, but definitely not a comfortable one by any means. Could absolutely be thrown out the window by any good race by England so far. Volumes still still keeping that MVP spot now more than 15 points, 44 points in a single GP. Definitely being the hero for US West. They're having so much frontal presence and the dodges when he doesn't when he isn't at the front to start off. Ford pulling a lot of the shocks this GP, it seemed, at the very least from what we've seen so far, definitely showing why you need to stay active if you want to be really competitive in this World Cup, as we've seen from teams such as Canada, for example, where pretty much every single one of their players is active in Division 1 at the moment. England chaining that winning race into Rainbow Road Solar Edition. Gotta remember, ever since the rework of this track, 2-3 is no longer the preferred spots on this track, as the leading spots are now on the right side instead of the left side. Little bit of niche knowledge for you all. Season and Bali still going to try and keep that top two. Season forced a little bit wide to keep an item around, but none of them hitting out Kairos or Volumes, forced into fourth so far, as Season needs to make his way back up there. Triple Shrooms could absolutely be what he needs, but that is a double fib from Volumes here, heading out his teammate, but also heading out Season. The issue is that Season had those Triple Shrooms to immediately catch back up into third place here. Snowy does get redded out, and Season could suffer a similar fate, but that triple green is going to be more than enough for him to stay in third for now. Volume still keeping that second place for now. Season trying to back on landing, not quite connecting. For now, Volumes is Bali's mission. I do not believe that Season is able to quite connect with anything so far, as he is simply going to focus on potentially trying to back out Winter for now. Let's quickly switch over POVs. Speaking of which, onto Winter here, as that fib did connect onto Season, it looks like, but not enough to completely slow him down. Snowy making his way up into third place. 134 for now for England. Definitely a really nice cushion for them. And I do want to point out the fact that both backers have gone once again. So on the sitting track, someone else has pulled Winter, chaining that shroom, not getting another chain for now, where Snowy did get an item here. So Winter could be in a bit of trouble as we approach that set here. But Banana does connect from Volumes onto Snowy there. 2-3 for US West. Winter and Volume has so much work to do, and that fib is definitely part of it, hitting out Snowy more, forcing him back as Season makes his way up, and a great wheelie bump as well. 1-3 for England for now, as Volumes is also hit out. That is now top two on the side of England. Their great play from Season and Bolly getting those US West top spots out of contention for now. But gotta remember, we still don't know who that shock belongs to, but seeing that Nathan is on the moon, that is most likely an England shock that we might see late on the moon to TS the US West late backs from both members of England hitting once again. So much work is being done by England to increase that break here. And I do think we should expect a moon shock or something, possibly either way, extremely late from England, as you now just need to secure that top two. You need to secure that winning race, increase your momentum as much as you can. But for now, Winter simply throwing those reds in vain. I don't believe any of those are even close enough to connect this season so far, unless we see some absolute heat seekers, Mario Kart World style, as POW is going to be called, and there's the shock that we were expecting. That TS on the moon, absolutely brutal drop, as you're shocked onto there, as we do see Kairos actually predicting that, dodging up in a start into second place, but Snowy also making his way up there, and End being the last member to golden up. So now England in 1, 3, 4, 5 could be an absolute massacre of a race. That TC is not going to help matters for Winter unless he can pass it to End, which he does manage to do so, and needs to try and pass it off to Winter once more. But staying on those ramps, Winter should be able to stay alive. 1, 3, 4 for now still on the side of England there. Season shrimming up at the end, trying to pass Kairos by any means necessary, but it's not going to be enough. But 1-3-4-7 is absolutely massive from England, getting up their form back from the start of the match, chaining into that Rainbow Road Solo Edition pick and getting a beautiful, although it did get predicted by Kairos, allowing him to sneak up into second place. It still allowed England to get an absolutely beautiful race that would have been even better if N did not ended up passing that TC Bali, pretty much staying in first place from the first second to the last, as we are now up 5 points on the side of England, taking that lead back as we go into the final quarter of this match. England absolutely having the mental fortitude to catch back up after that pen, after so many losing races. Really nice to see from them. But the US West absolutely are far from done. 5 points is absolutely nothing when it comes to a Mario Kart Wii match. That is barely a single race most of the time. So wouldn't be surprised to see the lead possibly shift once more back in US West's favor. Um, but yeah, so 3 races left. Still pretty much everything to play for. England playing for their survival in the group stage, whereas US West is playing for a potential second seed behind Canada, possibly trying to skip on quarterfinals entirely. GCN Yoshi Circuit is going to be the pick for US West, and Great Apple War for England. Definitely a more modern track that is going to be end up getting picked there. SV is rather known for picking this, for example, and part of that team for pretty much forever at this point. But yeah, being a pretty good example of that back in the custom track league days. But regardless, we will follow Winter at the start there, trying to see if he can possibly make his way up. Gotta remember how strong that Shroomless is at the start, and a few bumps later, US West immediately in 2, 3, 4 volumes. The last member does end up getting hit out. Unfortunately, will we see US West get hit out before that? That is a great Nana from the Bali there, getting Virox out of contention almost immediately. 1-4-5 for US for England. Sorry, as season shrooms up and end gets Winter out of contention altogether with that red, and you can already see how far bottom 2 is from the rest of the pack. I don't know what happened to US West, but England are already in an amazing spot, and it is not even the end of lap 1, but look at where top 5 is, and it seems that there has been a bit of a fail. Unfortunately, it is from End, right as I mentioned the fact that he picks that track a lot, but Kairos ends up falling off and possibly redded by his teammate as well. That red is taking forever to reach, my lord. It is not connect. It did not end up connecting, and there's a blue shell at the very least being thrown at England. But yeah, for now, England have such a huge lead. Even if that blue is thrown, you can see its season barely impacted by that at all. As another member of US West ends up falling on that cut here. Winter is now the only one left in that top 4 by quite a margin there, as England have such a huge lead. At this point, they might be able to just secure their win right then and there. It entirely depends on how well they can fend off Winter here. Triple Shroom should allow him to catch back up to Snowy at the very least, but without a shock, this race could very well be over already. I'm not quite sure which team could have it. Unfortunately, Snowy ends up slowing down alongside Winter. That is definitely US West shock. It is indeed. And unfortunately, Snowy not slowing down enough alongside US West. And there is how a single shock on such a cannon track can absolutely turn a race around. Winter in first with the Shroom at this point. Let's quickly switch on over POVs to Season to quickly check where he is in fourth, pretty much trading places with where Winter was the entire way, and that is a back bomb straight onto onto an England member's face as a top three for US West is drawn. Virox actually shrooming his way up, which is being contested by another England member, making his way up all the way into second place, I believe, salvaging the race for England. But yeah, that single shock absolutely turned the race around on its head for the absolute MVP for US West at this point, as now, as we approach those last two races, US West is going to have a pretty big margin of error for the next bit of time. But yeah, Snowy, unfortunately, just being impatient there, not waiting long enough to dodge alongside US West and pretty much leaving Season to fend for himself as he was TS'd in the cut. But yeah, Snowy does manage to golden up in the end into second place, thankfully salvaging a little bit for England. But yeah, US West now in the lead by 12 points, the double digits that you definitely like to see. And one more winning race could absolutely spell doom for England's chances out of that round robin bracket here as we go into the second to last race of this match, which once again, third time that the lead has shifted in that match. It's been really nice to see compared to Custom Track Cup, where the lead pretty much stays put throughout an entire match. These World Cup matches, the lead has absolutely shifted numerous times across an entire match, and you absolutely love to see it here. Maybe not if you're England, but if you're casting or watching this, I bet you are. Plus 12 for US West as we approach Shy Guy Lumberco Metabus, classic Metabus track pick, as we go up for England, possibly trying to uh, take their last chance at a top 6 spot. We are going to follow Season here really quickly at the start, as the first set is massively important here, possibly seeing what he ends up getting at the start of this race here. A little bit of delay between our two POVs. Hopefully we will end up fixing it mid-race. But yeah, first set, immediate golden, most likely going to allow him to catch back up. But no, Kairos, an immediate mega there, allowing him to completely wipe Season's chances out of the water. We do see Snowy is still making his way up there. One member of US West taking that cut alongside pretty much the rest of England. Winter keeping that red here for potential hit, but so many of US West actually end up being hit out here. Season, the only member of England in that bottom four. Bali taking the cut as well. 2, 3, 4 on the side of England. That is absolutely the start that you want to see for them if you are on the side of England at this point. Season making his way up behind Winter in 6th place. And as you see, Nathan is dominating the bagging battle so far, as Ford is barely making his way across that first strat here. So there is a very real chance that England could chain some shocks here. Nathan chaining in 10 for the time being. Season goldening up most likely into, at the very least, that 5th place, and now top 5 is within a few seconds of each other. Winter, that mega being chained into a bomb, unfortunately not quite going to be able to connect for a lot of this Season, with that TC trying to pass it on to Winter, but it's not going to be enough. Season taking it out of contention pretty much almost immediately, as England is still holding. No, not holding on to the 2-3-4. What happened up there? England now top 3 as we go into that lap 3. That is an absolutely massive shift of this race there. Pow is going to get called, thankfully allowing Winter to chain, getting a shroom, possibly allowing him to pass. Yes, and I was not making a mistake there. Possibly allowing N to pass into second, but unfortunately that shock is going to force those hopes out of US West here. We did see one dodge in the back, which is possibly a US West member getting back up there. It is indeed Volumes. That red is going to connect, unfortunately. 1-3-4 on the side of England still. Season in 8th for now. We need a miracle on the side of US West if you want to get back up there. A blue could be the start to said miracle. Golden is going to be used by Winter. Going to try and get back up there. Can't quite chain. He is going to be pretty vulnerable against the England members here. A lot of backslide, and they are going to connect onto Snowy there. Bali ends up getting blued, and that is 1-4 on the side of US West here. Bottom 2, unfortunately, as the match is going to get decided by that last race here, as US barely loses that race by 5 points. 2-3, 5-6 being enough for England to clutch out that win, thanks to that blue from US West, not allowing them to quite take the lead just yet. 1-4, 7-8, 2-3, 5-6 for England, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is what you want to see, the game being decided by a single race at the end of the war. +7 for US West. Nothing is certain just yet. England can absolutely clutch out that win. It might just depend on the bagging battle between Nathan and Ford here, but still really down to the wire here, as both teams are this is an important match for both teams for different reasons, as we mentioned earlier on, and you're absolutely feeling it in every single one of these plays, every single one of these backs, every single one of these items overall. It's absolutely cinema, straight up cinema for one of the last few days of this group stage. This last pick could absolutely be massive here. Bowser's Fire Fortress and Alpine Skyway. Alpine Skyway is expected since you have Snowy on the England team, but Bowser's Fire Fortress is definitely not one I expected. A rather more obscure running track there, but definitely one that you can run well if you know it properly. But Alpine Skyway is going to be the pick, the Snowy Indiv pick, as some may like to call it. But yeah, the England pick comes through for the end, and they need it at this point as they are still on the back foot. US West just need to play for a win, any win at all, as England needs at the very least a +7 race, which would be 2, 3, 4, or top two and not bottom two at the very least. Bali and making their way up immediately. Right as I say that, ends up bumped out, and great back by Bali, immediately getting Winter out of that top two. Speaking of which, top two for England as we are approaching that. Shroomless here, Snowy trying to get Volumes out of contention, not quite working out for now. Volumes does end up hitting the wall, so does Winter. Snowy showing his experience on the track, getting a bit faster than those other two US West members here. Winter is going to be able to take the Shroom Cut to get back up there. Snowy still has a lot of schlagging work to do, gets a nice builder bump onto Winter as well. Snowy doing a lot of work here to keep Bali into first place. That green is not going to connect either, as Volumes and Winter are both trying to hit out Snowy as much as possible, but they're just not able to get him out just yet. That TC from Winter is not going to help matters at all. Most likely not going to be able to pass it, going to have to eat it. Kairos is right behind him. Triple Shrooms maybe to try and pass up to Snowy, but no, not going to happen at all. Top two, bottom two on the side of England so far, as we see both baggers go for the strat, and Season is holding on to that bill. We have to see. Ford is the first one to make the strat here, so there is a chance that USA are going to be able to simply get the shock and dodge in the cannon, which will allow them simply pretty much a free win at this point. Season is immediately using that bill. Surprised to see it used so early. Speaking of which, possibly just it being forced out of him. Unfortunately, Virox eating another TC there. Triple Shrooms on the side of Winter, going to try and catch back up to that top three, who has been breaking away more and more. You see the pack split at this point, but it's good for USA. You don't necessarily need a huge race. You just need to secure those mid spots, if anything. And if Ford already has that shock, but it doesn't seem like it, he is respawning. No bagger has the shock just yet. We are not going to see a cannon dodge, most likely. I think this is the first time I've seen an Alpine Skyway bagging battle go all the way to lap -2. Snowy and Bali still up there. We do see Seaton making his way up into 5th place. Triple Reds are going to be needed here to try and get out. Trying to get Seaton out so far. Will we see Winter try and pass Volumes to hit out Snowy? Doesn't seem like it. Simply trying to get those snipes out. Let's quickly switch on over POV towards Season, who is holding the blue. Unfortunately, it means that he can't do much to pass the members of US West. It is going to come down to whoever is behind him. If England can get that top 256, it is going to be enough to get that win. Nice back green, but it is not going to be enough. There's the shock, comes out late. That blue shell is going to connect onto one of the US members, possibly, but it does not end up making a difference. That Mega not going to make a difference either. It entirely depends on who's behind him. And for top 258, I do believe it is enough for England to actually clutch out the win. It might depend on dagger point, not quite sure, but it should be enough through raw driving alone for England to pass, and it is +2 for England, barely managing to pass Snowy and Bally, keeping up that top two, getting their way all the way throughout that track season. That fifth place allowing England to barely edge out that win over US West, even with that -20. What a magnificent comeback on the side of England, ladies and gentlemen. Absolute cinema as they keep their playoff hopes alive and they can still contend for that top six spot. Magnificent play by them. Didn't even need the shock on Alpine Skyway. Just overall having the mental resilience to stay up there. Are you kidding me? I okay, great. Bagger points are wrong. So I just found out that bagger points are wrong and US actually end up winning by 2. Oh no. Well, there goes my entire spiel. Oh no, that's unfortunate. Oh no. Okay, well, unfortunately, that eighth place was indeed not enough for England to actually stay up there, and US West wins that match by a hair, by the hairiest of hairs that you could possibly uh have, and yeah, barely able to keep that win and pretty much snuffing out England's playoffs hopes entirely. Although for US West, that does mean that they could potentially get that second seed behind Canada, get that uh, quarterfinal skip that they were hoping for. So definitely the result that you want if you're US West, but unfortunately for England, it pretty much guarantees that they are off playoffs contention entirely unless the table ends up being extremely lopsided, which it very well could be. Uh, but yeah, there is pretty unfortunate that it ends up being cut short simply because our table was wrong. That is our mistake. Uh, sorry for the sorry for the little bit of fake out here. I was just as faked out as you were, unfortunately. That's what happens when we don't check the bagger points when it's so close. But yeah, regardless, congratulations to US West. Congratulations to England. Still, that was a magnificent match from both of these teams, making it all the way to the final race, making it so close all throughout, and overall having such an amazing match. That was a pleasure to commentate, and I hope it was just as much of a pleasure to watch for you guys. For those that are hoping for more Mario Kart Wii custom track goodness, don't worry, we have more. We have more coming in along soon. It will be Canada versus US South, possibly the two strongest teams in the tournaments right now, going head to head in about uh, 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so. So stick around and we will be casting that right after a short break. Wish you guys a great evening and see you guys in just a little bit.